Joseph Edward Corcoran, born April 18, 1975, died December 18, 2024, was an American convicted mass murderer and suspected serial killer who was executed for a 1997 quadruple murder case in Indiana. Corcoran was found guilty of the 1997 murders of his brother, his sister's fiancé, and two of their friends at his house in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and sentenced to death in 1999. Prior to this, Corcoran was previously charged in 1992 with murdering his parents when he was nearly 17 but was acquitted of all charges. Corcoran, who had since exhausted all avenues of appeal against the death penalty, was executed on December 18, 2024. Early life. Born in Fort Wayne, Indiana, on April 18, 1975, Joseph Edward Corcoran grew up in Hamilton, where he lived with his parents, two sisters, and one brother, before they moved to Ball Lake in Steuben County. Corcoran's father, Jack, was a former Marine who worked in an electronics company after his military discharge, while his mother, Catherine, a homemaker, worked as a nursing aide in Fort Wayne in the 1980s and also went to business school at one point. Corcoran, a teen at Hamilton Junior-Senior High School, struggled with his parents and brother James, who belittled him despite his military service. Despite his intelligence, he struggled academically and dropped out of school with a C average. Despite his interest in electronics, Corcoran struggled with schoolwork and had a hobby of making explosives and collecting guns. At 22, he amassed a collection of 32 types of firearms. 1992 murders of Jack and Catherine Corcoran. Joseph Corcoran allegedly murdered his parents in 1992, found dead in their Ball Lake home in Steuben County, Indiana. Corcoran had offered them $200 and a shotgun to kill them, but the evidence against him was circumstantial. After a 5-day trial, Corcoran was acquitted in November 1992, but his case remains unsolved. After his acquittal, Corcoran lived with his siblings and worked as a dishwasher and cook. In 1997, he was arrested for quadruple murder, but the jury was unable to decide on his guilt due to the circumstantial evidence and lack of direct witnesses and murder weapons. 1997 Fort Wayne quadruple murders. On July 26, 1997, Joseph Corcoran committed the quadruple murder of his brother and 3 other men in Fort Wayne, Indiana. The murders occurred when Corcoran, his brother James, and friends were discussing his involvement in the murders. Corcoran overheard the men talking about him and confronted them with a gun. He shot his brother, Turner, and Bricker, while Stillwell escaped. Corcoran's niece was unharmed. The bodies of the men and weapons were found in Corcoran's attic. Corcoran's sister, who had previously defended him in court, blamed him for ruining her life with the loss of their parents and James. The 1997 Fort Wayne murders were among the most infamous mass murder cases in Indiana. 1999 trial and sentencing. Joseph Corcoran, 22, was arraigned in 1997 for 4 counts of murder following the Fort Wayne murders. He was found guilty on all 4 counts and sentenced to death by Allen County Superior Judge Fran Gull. The conviction carries the death penalty or life in prison under Indiana state law. Appeal processes. Joseph Corcoran was convicted of murder in 2000 and his appeal was heard by the Indiana Supreme Court. The court upheld Corcoran's conviction but vacated his 4 death sentences. Judge Fran Gull resentenced him to death, stating that his psychiatric evidence did not hinder his ability to recognize the magnitude of his crimes. Corcoran appealed twice to the Indiana Supreme Court, but all were rejected. His execution date was postponed due to ongoing appeals. In 2007, the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Indiana vacated Corcoran's death sentences, but the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals allowed the death sentence to stand. The U.S. Supreme Court overturned this decision in 2009, but Corcoran's death sentence was reinstated in 2010. Corcoran's appeals were rejected multiple times, and his final appeal was rejected by the U.S. Supreme Court in 2016, resulting in his execution. Death row. Joseph Corcoran, sentenced in 1999, spent over 2 decades on death row in Indiana State Prison. He appealed against the death penalty, which had been vacated multiple times. Corcoran was one of 11 inmates awaiting execution in Indiana by January 2014. The death row population fell to 8 in July 2020, but Corcoran remains on death row. As of June 2024, he is one of 4 inmates who have exhausted all appeals, leaving the death row population at 8. Death warrant in 2024. In June 2024, Attorney General Todd Rokita filed a motion to the Indiana Supreme Court to request an execution date for Corcoran, a man who was executed in 1997 due to a 15-year moratorium on pending executions in Indiana. The state authorities confirmed that pentobarbital would be used for all subsequent executions, including Corcoran's, and Governor Eric Holcomb defended the decision. Corcoran had the final recourse to appeal for clemency from the governor to commute his death sentence to life imprisonment. Corcoran's lawyers opposed authorizing the death warrant, arguing that he had been mentally ill and suffered from paranoid schizophrenia. The Indiana Supreme Court approved Corcoran's death warrant on September 11, 2024, and scheduled his execution before dawn on December 18, 2024. Corcoran's sister Kelly Ernst, who lost her fiancé and other brother to Corcoran's murders, stated she would not attend the execution and did not personally support capital punishment. Media witnesses were not allowed to attend Corcoran's execution, which came under scrutiny as opponents of capital punishment argued that media witnesses should be allowed to witness the execution and provide factual accounts of the process. Corcoran's lawyers confirmed on September 30 that they would be petitioning for clemency from the governor. In November 2024, Corcoran's lawyers sought a stay of execution due to his severe paranoid schizophrenia. They drafted a clemency petition to the Indiana Parole Board, but Corcoran refused due to his personal intention to die. The Indiana Supreme Court dismissed Corcoran's appeal, and he chose not to appeal or postpone his execution. Corcoran's appeals were rejected in Federal District Court, 7th Circuit Court of Appeals, and U.S. Supreme Court. Execution. On December 18, 2024, Joseph Corcoran was executed by lethal injection at Indiana State Prison. He was the first condemned inmate to be executed in Indiana after a 15-year moratorium since 2009 and the 24th death row prisoner to have his death sentence carried out in the U.S. Corcoran's case has been reviewed repeatedly over the last 25 years, with Governor Eric Holcomb and Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita supporting his sentence. Corcoran's final words were not really, "Let's get this over with."